So. Can you all hear me? Yeah? Is it on? Okay, cool. So, it's a great pleasure to meet you all. For me, no, but you need you need to put in, yes. All right. So, right on Swiss punctuality, we will start. Swissness will also be a topic today in our wonderful panel. But let's kick it off because we have 30 minutes and we have a lot to talk about with my wonderful guest, Scarlet. So, good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Melanie Gabriel. I'm on the one hand the co-founder of Yokoi, a fintech from Switzerland, but I'm also currently an entrepreneur in residence at the EPFL AI Center, and I run a podcast and a newsletter about how to scale a business in Europe called Follow the Gradient. So that is my background. But before we dive into today's topic about SNAI, let's start with you, Scarlett. You've worked at the intersection of academia and industry, including leadership roles at US tech firms, and now you're directing the EPFL AI Center. What have you learned on that journey that you think is especially relevant for startups navigating this next wave of AI?
Thank you very much, Melanie. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for giving me your attention. And as Melanie said, so I've worked in US big tech and also in academia, so I cannot share a startup experience, but I have worked a lot on technology transfer within mainly US big tech, so that was Microsoft Research and Amazon, and I can share as an introduction a little bit of my take of what matters in terms of technology transfer. So the important thing to note is that, so I work mainly in research. The important thing to note is that researchers mainly work towards experimental projects. So in the space of AI, you might have an experimental AI prototype that you work towards. And the main goal is a research goal or a research and engineering goal you are pursuing. And what you would like to achieve is basically publish a paper in one of the top tier conferences. Perhaps you have a proof of concept that you show to the research community. So that's on the experimental side. And then of course on the other side we have a mature product technology that you offer to your customers. And the space between the technology transfer gap, or I know in the startup domain that's called the valley of death, is of course very, very hard to bridge. And I have seen what is needed in US big tech to bridge this gap. So, and I would like to share some example from my time at Amazon, because what's interesting about Amazon is that they really try to maintain a startup mindset that's really deeply ingrained in the company culture. And how do they do this? They basically have a leadership principle called customer obsession. And when you start a new project, a research project, the research team is forced to think about who is the customer. So who is the customer for the project I'm doing? And you have to start your project by writing a document, who is the customer, and writing a fictional press release with an FAQ. So this is how you start your project. You present it to your stakeholders. They give you a bit of seed funding for the next stage. And then you have to go back and show measurable progress towards your goal. You might have to refine your document, your customer vision, etc. But you have measurable progress, hopefully, and you go step by step, bridging this divide. And of course, as in a startup domain, I know that 9 out of 10 startups do not succeed, and it's similar in US big tech. So 9 out of 10 projects do not succeed getting step by step through this divide until you have this minimum viable product that you can start releasing to customers, and then you have, of course, your first customers that are using it, you get feedback, you make it better, and you then basically grow your flywheel until you have a mature product technology. So that's what I learned in US big tech, and I do think that's relevant experience to startups. And now, of course, I'm back in academia, and a pleasure to be the executive director of the EPFL AI Center.
Thank you very much for telling this journey. Now, maybe there are many people here that don't know about SNAI yet. So let's briefly set the stage before we then dive a little bit deeper. So SNAI, the Swiss National AI Institute, is a new joint initiative by ETH Zurich and EPFL, and it really brings together AI talent, data, and compute infrastructure under one roof. So the mission also for me as an entrepreneur, I find also super bold and exactly what we need here, not only in Switzerland, but in Europe and the world, is to really build open, trustworthy, sovereign AI that reflects Swiss values and serves the needs of our society and economy. So that means developing our own large-scale foundation models as a trustworthy, transparent, and also counterpart to the currently dominating corporate models from the East and the West. So a little bit more about it. SNAI is not only an academic project, it's really designed to accelerate research, fuel real-world innovation, and basically build the bridges between academia and industry, policy and product, infrastructure, and entrepreneurship. So in the next 25 minutes, we'll explore what SNAI means for Switzerland, for Europe, and also beyond, and for you, the people who are the innovators, the builders, and also the founders in this room. So together with the co-founder of and managing director of the ETH AI Center, Alex Ilic, we've also recently, the three of us, published an article about SNAI and how Swiss research wants to lead the way with trustworthy AI. So for everyone who is interested, happy to send the link to the article. But the article opens with a pretty direct observation. The scaling of AI is exponential, and global powers like the US, China, and the UK are massively investing in compute, data, and research. So without bold action, Switzerland risks falling behind. So let's start here. Why is now the moment to act, Scarlet?
Yeah, so let me go back a bit. So of course you were hopefully in the main stage and heard the announcement between Swisscom, ETH, Zurich and EPFL about the new partnership between Swisscom and the Swiss National AI Institute, the Swiss AI initiative. And let me go back a bit, because you are asking why is now the moment to act. And I would like to go back a good 2 years, because we have actually worked towards this moment very hard a bit between all the different partners. So let me tell you where we started. So of course AI has been a very important topic, certainly in a research engineering environment for many years. But of course a big change came in November 22 when ChatGPT came on the horizon, and suddenly the global hype started. And now of course everyone is affected by this revolution and by this hype wave. So this was of course a moment when generative AI, and that's basically the technology behind foundation models, when this became center stage, not just for the technology industry, but for everyday people. And so already back then we had very strong AI research at both universities, ETH and EPFL, and our researchers started to work even more closely together, because they basically realized that in order to succeed in this space, it's really important that you have critical mass. So you used to be able, for example, to have a top-tier publication at one of the main conferences with a research team of about 5. But I know from our professors who basically say, now you need 50 people working together to have a main contribution at these research conferences. And of course, not many players can basically compete in this. So that's why very early on, 2 years ago, our researchers started to work very closely together and started to, what they call the Swiss AI initiative, really work jointly on a national level to achieve this critical mass. And in order to have this to succeed, you don't just need the talent working together, you also need the compute, of course, so we'll cover that later as well, but you need a compute infrastructure, and you also need to have data sources, you need quality data and data science. So over the past 2 years, these collaborations have really started. We have really started to work on great projects together in foundational AI, but also many applied AI topics, like in health, for example, sustainability, etc. And then came to the moment that we basically now have launched the Swiss National AI Institute in the autumn of last year. In parallel, almost, the ALP supercomputer run by the Swiss Supercomputing Center in Lugano was inaugurated. And now we basically, and then we have also the Swiss Data Science Center that brings data science expertise. And now this has all come together. ALPS is fully operational, our research is working on impactful projects, and we are now really ready to roll. So we have worked hard, and now we can create impact.
And like at the ETH and EPFL, we're not just building powerful models, we're also designing them to be transparent, ethical, and inclusive. So in a world dominated by closed and opaque systems, Switzerland is positioning trustworthy AI as a core competitive advantage. So what does that mean in practice, and how can it become a differentiator for founders working with sensitive or regulated data?
Okay, so looking at trustworthiness, which is not a scientific term, so it's a bit fuzzy, but I would like to bring it back to basically open versus closed models. So you're basically, in terms of generative AI, which is the technology behind foundation models, you have three approaches. One is the closed proprietary models. So this is, for example, ChatGPT. You have a user interface. You don't know what's happening behind that. You do not know what data it has trained on. You do not know what model weights there are. You do not have any access to the source code, anything. So most of the common models are in that category. The next category is the open weights model. So Meta with Llama is in that category, and we are very appreciative to Meta because we use Llama a lot. We would not have the compute resources to train a foundation model like this, but that's great because the model weights are known. And this basically enables us to do independent robustness and bias testing and also fine-tuning of the models. So this already gives us good freedom. But still, the training data is not known, which is, of course, in Europe with regulation and trustworthiness, that's not great. And the third type of model is the fully open source models. So there is an example, for example, Olmo by the Allen Institute that most of you will not have heard of. These are very rare, but they basically are the gold standard in that they show what training data, what has been used, what model weights are there, and what is the source code. So this is all fully open. And of course, open source then means it's fully transparent, and transparency is of course good because that can be, everyone can test it in terms of regulation. It adheres to the guidelines, etc. So that is basically the gold standard that we strive towards with the Swiss National AI Institute. And so we focus on open source models, also multiple languages. So the US models are often 95+% English, of course, but we, at Switzerland, of course, but also worldwide, we appreciate that cultures, etc., in other languages are not well reflected. So that's our goal as well, to really cover multiple languages in these foundation models. So the goals is really being fully open source, from training data to filtering, training, post-processing and model weights. Then be fully compliant with Swiss AI regulations and the EU AI Act, and then also use state-of-the-art research-based methods at all stages, and that gives us maximum transparency, and that's basically trustworthy,
Yeah.
I would claim.
Yeah. And now to build these open foundational models, we need serious infrastructure. And you already mentioned it. ALPS is now fully functional, and it's also the most powerful public supercomputer in the world. So can you tell us why this is so important, that we also talk about it so much?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, and in order to succeed in AI, we need talent, we need data, we need compute. And we are also very fortunate here that we have good access to compute with this ALP supercomputer. And let me just go back a little bit. You probably all know that the compute resources are mainly based on what the company NVIDIA gives us with their graphical processing units, the GPU technology. And of course, this is just one company, so the access is very rare. It's US-based. We have limited supply, and we also now have the AI Diffusion Act that basically limits the number of chips that can be imported into Switzerland. So it's a very difficult domain. There are other companies pushing in, but NVIDIA has a little bit of a market dominance because it's not just the chips, it's the development environment, CUDA, that basically pulls people into using that ecosystem. So especially the AI Diffusion Act, of course, makes it difficult going forward for Switzerland. But looking back, in hindsight, we are very fortunate to have the Swiss Supercomputing Center and its very foresightful director, Thomas Schultes, who basically, during COVID, he basically realized there are these new chips coming that we really should get our hands on. And that was during COVID that the order for the 10,000 plus Grace Hopper GPUs, so these are most cutting edge technology, that this was placed. And this is how long it took to build up Alps until it was inaugurated last autumn. And it's now fully up and running and running research workloads and the weather, etc. So this is really good. And just to put this in perspective, as well to the rest of Europe. You might have seen the EU announcing AI factories. 15 AI factories have been announced. What's important to note is that only in Finland, with the Lumi supercomputer, you have actually an infrastructure that is really operational. But in terms of other AI factories, they are planning. And if you look back at Alps, so that's like 4 years in the making until it's up and running. So this will incur a year-long delay until all these come about. So the good news about Alps is we have this running today. It's being used by ETH, EPFL researcher, but it's actually open for research collaboration with other academic institutions in Switzerland, in Europe and worldwide. There needs to be an ETH or EPFL collaborator, but it is a global, open, public research infrastructure that we have and can use, and we're already running call for proposals for projects, for workloads, to fill these GPUs with as much workload as possible, because every idle hour is basically money wasted.
And now I'm bringing in again my founder hat and entrepreneur hat. Especially in healthcare and also finance or industry, startups do not have really access to the right data. It is often locked, it's fragmented or too sensitive. So what role do you see for government or public-private initiatives in unlocking data access? And what models, like for example the Zurich Sandbox, are showing real promise?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so indeed, the lack of quality data is a big problem, of course, hindrance, especially if you rely training on just web crawlers using collecting arbitrary data from the internet, because, you know, that might have personal information in there, that certainly has copyrighted information in there, etc. So that's not great, of course. So the quality of the data that we use, especially in Switzerland, is really very, very important. And there are great initiatives in Switzerland. So you mentioned the Zurich Innovation Sandbox for AI that's run by the Canton of Zurich. And that's a test environment for the implementation of AI project that allows real data use under clear legal and ethical use rules. And it gives organizations, including startups, SMEs, etc., access to regulatory know-how and new data sources. And all the findings are then shared publicly. So this is really a great way for different sectors to really test their environment, learn from others, etc. Then I mentioned the Swiss Data Science Center, but that's run by EPFL and ETH Zurich before. So that really has, since 2019, great expertise on data and data science and machine learning. So that's a great national asset that we have. And then also last week I attended a finance event in Zurich, the associated to 0 Point Forum, and was really interested to hear of the activities in the finance industry. So the BIS Innovation Hub, for example, they launched Project NEO a few years ago. To explore novel data sources from private companies and public institutions. So they are working very hard on obtaining access to these. They are open also, they are open for discussions to use this in a research environment as well. So this is great, because this really is data, quality data that is company and industry specific. And so finance uses it to basically gain new economic insights. But for us in a research environment, it would also be great to have.
And now, just this morning, you mentioned it, we had on the main stage a great announcement. Swisscom was announced as first industrial partner of SNAI. And also, I think I can say that this is a clear sign that this is not just academic, as I already mentioned before. So I have the pleasure to introduce here a special guest, Daniel Dobosch. He's the research director at Swisscom. And my question to you, Daniel, would be, what does the partnership with Swisscom unlock, and how does industry involvement help us move from research to real-world applications?
Thanks a lot for this nice question. Yeah, we are totally excited about this partnership that was announced this morning on the main stage, because it really offers a partnership that can bring knowledge transfer in both directions. So we are totally excited of being able to try out this kind of new models that are announced to come. We're excited to see how they can really create benefit for all players in Switzerland, from small startups to big companies. Where we are excited to collaborate is that we are using for our internal stuff already quite some AI foundation models, and our staff can internally choose which one they want, and they can use that in a trustworthy and secure way. We're excited that we have now a new opportunity to try this out with a fully end-to-end Swiss foundational model. What it offers, I think, for startups is this trying out this kind of sovereignty, AI sovereignty, especially for applications where the data should stay in Switzerland, where also our Swiss AI platform offers solutions which are end-to-end Swiss and allow to then rely on a trustworthy and end-to-end solution where one can trust that not only the model, not only the data, is transparent, and I think this is a very important aspect for us, this transparency, having the open source of a source code, having the weights open, having the filtering open, so that everybody can understand what biases exist or not. And we are excited that this can be tried out very soon by all entrepreneurs, by everybody who are the makers, who are the drivers, to create new business solutions out of it.
Thank you very, very much. And now it was also a little bit better that we could hear, but I could lip read, so that worked as well. So thank you for saying that. And I know that you will be around. So for everyone who is interested to learn more, like you will be here and can also answer more questions about this. Now, we often hear that foundation models are inaccessible, as we just also discussed. That's changing this fall, and I'm very pleased to actually introduce another surprise guest. Her name is Scarlet, and she's the co-founder of AI Weeks. So this fall we will have Swiss AI Weeks, a full month of open access hackathons and real testing. So my question to you would be, how can founders and developers get their hands on the Swiss foundation models, and what's special about the Swiss AI Weeks?
Thank you so much. So yes, as we said, it's really important putting it really in practical cases. And so we are creating AI weeks together with Swisscom and many different partners to really run hackathons in many different cities in Switzerland, to collect challenges from organizations from public and private sphere, and really kind of hack those solutions that can have really impact in the short term and the long term to all of the changes that are happening in Switzerland for good, as well as, of course, community of students, of kind of hackers. So I would maybe invite it as an open call. If anybody would like to be engaged, come to us. It's really hard to say in 2 minutes now, but you also can check our website, AI Weeks, and there will be much more coming out. But basically the purpose is to bring a huge community of Switzerland together to innovate and really kind of hack the solutions that have an impact. As you mentioned, health, we have it in health tech, gov tech, we have it with the university challenges that we have that. But I would say the sphere is quite open. So we're happy to also hear of more of the ideas and solutions that can be implemented.
Thank you very, very much. So now we're already at the end of it, and we also put a little bit more time so that we actually can answer questions and just in one-on-ones or just in a little group. So my last question to you would really be, where can people learn more about SNAI and upcoming initiatives?
So for SNAI, we are actually we are building a website now. So SNAI is the Swiss National AI Institute. So all the information is on swiss-ai.org for the Swiss AI initiative. So, for example, how to submit projects to small and large project calls, to utilize the Alps infrastructure is on there. We will very soon also open calls for postdoc positions and for PhD positions. etc. So this is a place to go. Then there is Swiss-AI-weeks.ch, which is for Swiss AI Weeks, the place to go. And then generally look at EPFL, ETH. There are many projects already ongoing in foundational AI and also applied AI. So looking at the web pages of ETH, EPFL, especially those of the AI centers, will be very important, because all the new programs that we have that relate to research, events happening, many are open to the public. So all of this is advertised there, including, of course, we have our Vice Presidency for Innovation at EPFL. They have many industry-facing events, including Startup, Investment Day, Investor Day, etc. So many relevant events taking place at ETH Zurich as well as EPFL. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very, very much, Scarlett. It has been a pleasure to discuss this wonderful initiative with all of you. And yeah, have a really nice day at Startup Days, and let's catch up soon.